To my right, I have Pastor Jordan from Greater Faith Church in Waukegan, who is a very prominent member of this community as well as a active community activist. I also, to my left, have Sheriff Mark Curran, the Lake County Sheriff, and Chief George Filenko, who is also the head of the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. About 3 weeks ago, I announced a program called the Alternative Prosecution Program. And the purpose of today is I wanted to essentially re-release that program and offer an opportunity to you to ask questions about the program, because we've received a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback on the program since we've announced it. And again, this is an opportunity to re-announce the program. And essentially what the Alternative Prosecution Program does is it recognizes that there are a certain group of first-time nonviolent offenders that have a conviction that weigh them down and essentially prevent them from being employable in the future. What this program does is it provides first-time nonviolent offenders who qualify for the program an opportunity to do public service, remain crime-free, pay restitution to the victim, seek treatment, and if those things are done, the case will then be dismissed. And again, it's my hope that this will accomplish two goals. It will accomplish those first-time, or provide those first-time nonviolent offenders with an opportunity to pay their debt to society without having the anchor of a conviction weighing them down for the rest of their lives. It will also help alleviate some congestions in the courthouse, which will take a lot of those cases away that are currently clogging up our court system and filling up our local jail. And it's my belief that prosecutors, court staff, law enforcement should be spending their precious time on those violent offenders who are out there harming our communities. This is also a self-funding program, and it's modeled after the very successful Second Chance program in Kane County, and there's also a recent pilot program similar to this in Cook County, which has also been incredibly successful.
Are there any questions for Mr. Nerheim? What was did you give the name of the program in Cook County?
I don't believe the program in Cook County has a name. The program in Kane County, which has been up and running for 17 years,
17, wow.
is called the Second Chance program.
Is this going to cost any money to the county, or is
No.
it something that...
It's self-funding.
How so?
The program participants will pay a fee similar to a court cost or a court fine to be part of the program. There will be a sliding scale for indigent defendants or suspects, and that will fund the program as it does in Kane County. I did travel to Kane County recently. I spoke with Joel McMahon, who is the Kane County State's Attorney. I spent a great deal of time with him going over the specifics of their program, and very pleased to hopefully have an opportunity to bring that program here to Lake County.
What kind of crime are you envisioning, like what kind of charges, and at what stage going into this alternative program that you're talking about?
This would include any first-time nonviolent offense. It would not include DUI cases or traffic cases, but drug offenses, even felony offenses like criminal trespass to land, criminal damage to property, retail theft, cases of that sort. Again, nonviolent offenses. There is a program or a method for entry into the program, and that does include feedback which will be sought from the arresting agency, and we will also seek feedback from the victim.
Would a victim have to sign off on this or give approval or anything like that, or does the victim have a say-so in this matter?
The victim will have the opportunity to object.
Okay.
Do you know how much King County has saved in terms of funds having their Second Chance program?
They have raised about $2.2 million in terms of restitution. It's estimated that they've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in court time and court expense. And again, Kane County is a smaller county, as you know, than Lake. I anticipate the cost savings will be greater in Lake County, as well as the amount of participation in the program.
Would it be true that it also saves money without, when you don't go to jail, that's also saving money? When you have to incarcerate a person?
There are tremendous cost savings. There's cost savings. You're not incarcerating people. You're not filling the courthouse, the court staff with these cases. And also on the back end, you're going to have a more employable society, hopefully, which will allow people to be more self-dependent.
Right. They can get tax-paying jobs.
Absolutely. The goal is to allow people to learn their lesson, pay their debt to society, and then go back into society and contribute in a productive manner.
At what point in the process would these cases be flagged as possible candidates for this program?
Immediately after arrest.
Immediately after.
Can you go back over those 3 points again? Those last 3 points about, you said, learn a lesson, pay their fine, and go back into society. Is there any more you can add to that?
Just to reiterate, they would pay their debts to society through public service, through paying the victim back with restitution, through treatment, remaining crime-free. They'll also have the opportunity to contribute back to society. Now they're hopefully employable. They can obtain jobs and be productive members of society.
After presenting this program, what is the next step after this?
Well, hopefully after November, if I'm elected as the next state's attorney, I will immediately implement this program into Lake County. I've spoken with several members of the judiciary. I've spoken with the county board president, and this is something that will be ready to begin right away. I've also spoken with key members of the Lake County law enforcement community as well, who I was pleased to learn are very supportive of this program.
So far, everyone's been very positive that you've spoken to. Have you
Yes.
had any resistance?
No, and I thought if there was going to be pushback, quite frankly, with regard to this program, it would come from law enforcement. And it was my pleasant surprise that the most supportive group I've dealt with is law enforcement. And as you can see, we have several key members of our law enforcement community here today that support this program. And again, they recognize, and their officers recognize, that some people should be allowed to have an opportunity to have that second chance. And I don't want to speak for law enforcement, but I think sometimes there may be a reluctance on the part of a patrol officer, for instance, to exercise some discretion to give somebody a break. And this way, that discretion and that responsibility, the state's attorney's office will take responsibility for, take it off of law enforcement, and have a more structured program for providing people that second chance.
What happens when they're a second-time offender after they've had this first offense? I mean, will this still be on their record?
There will be internal records kept to ensure that somebody does not receive the benefit of this program and then later commit another offense and have a record which would indicate that they're first-timers again. This is something that is only eligible for true first-time offenders, and if somebody does receive the benefit of this program and commits another offense later, they will not be given the opportunity to participate in this program.
But I mean, will they then be a second-time offender? They won't be looked at as
Correct.
first-time offender?
Correct.
Okay.
Come on up, Chief.
So is the process of taking that person's name away, is that the same as expungement, or is that not necessary?
That's a very good question. It's a different process. The expungement, and one of the reasons why I've developed this program is because, as you know, I've been a prosecutor. I'm currently a defense attorney. I do a lot of volunteer work helping people clear up their records, and it's very difficult to expunge an arrest. If there is a conviction on your record, it cannot be expunged. Any conviction, even a misdemeanor, cannot be expunged. Even those cases that are expungible, there is a 2 to 5 year waiting period from the successful completion of, let's say, supervision before you can begin the expungement process. So in some cases, if you commit an offense at the age of 18 or 19, or when you're about to finish college and you get 2 years of supervision, it could be up to 7 years from that period of time to when you would be eligible for expungement. And that's sort of at your prime job hunting time in your life. So this will allow you to immediately expunge that arrest, because if you successfully complete the program, there will be no conviction, the case will be dismissed. You would still, I would imagine, as a defendant, want to then go and expunge the arrest, which you'd be eligible to do immediately.
How did you decide to limit this program to people who get arrested for DUIs or traffic violations?
I believe, well, that's the model in Kane County, and DUIs are a particular type of offense, I think, that pose a unique danger to our community. And our laws are very strict here in Illinois. You are allowed court supervision, for instance, first for one time, your first offense for a DUI, and that's it. And if you get a DUI and then sometimes 20 years later obtain another DUI, you are not eligible for court supervision. And this program will not circumvent that law by allowing people to obtain a first DUI, receive this program, and then obtain a second DUI, and then obtain supervision. So again, the purpose for excluding that is the unique danger that drunk drivers pose to our community, especially repeat offenders.
Is there a time limit? Does this program run for like 1 month, 2 months, or is there a time?
In terms of if somebody's accepted into the program?
As in terms of how long will a person be on that program?
It could be up to 18 months, where they would have to remain crime-free, complete the probation, or I'm sorry, complete the public service, complete any treatment, and the restitution.
Oh, you say it can be up to 18 months?
Correct.
What's the minimum amount of time?
A year.
Anyway, they would have to be in the program at least a year
Correct.
and no longer than 18 months.
Correct. Did you want to make a statement, Chair?
I support it fully. These are issues that I've been talking about for the last 6 years, and I know the men on my left agree. 1 in 100 Americans is currently incarcerated. It's estimated that 1 in 15 will be at some point in their lifetime. We have approximately 5% of the world's population. We incarcerate 25% of the incarcerated population in the world. Morally, that's not right. We know that what we've been doing has not been working from a recidivism perspective. We need to look at these lesser offenses and, in essence, divert them out of the justice system. We also know that in this day and age we're watching every fiscal statement. We have to be cognizant of what's an appropriate use of resources, and to continue to incarcerate people at the level that we have, to continue to put as many people in the justice system that we have in the past is a recipe for disaster, long-term disaster. So I'm glad that Mike Nerheim is talking about these issues, and we absolutely support him.
Mike brought up a point of local law enforcement in dealing with situations where some of our discretion over the years has been limited due to a number of issues, either internally or with the criminal justice system. Back in the day, a lot of us who are probably closer to my age remember perhaps policing where it was more on a personal level, and there were those options and discretions. There were those times where a first-time offender who may be somebody who's a little younger, making a first mistake, was just simply taken home, presented to the parents, and then there was some parental discretion and discipline. Certainly a lot of that still remains, but it's gone away over the years. There have been so many innovative programs that are thinking more about the future instead of the immediate. For example, successful programs like the drug program that Lake County is very excited about that program. Have gone to a number of the drug court graduations. Teen Court is another program that gives teens an option to not be put into the system but be judged by their own peers, and there have been recidivism numbers that have reflected the successes in both of those programs. So again, as law enforcement, you would think that our focus would be on arrests and eliminating the immediate crime, but we as law enforcement, as community leaders, need to look at the situation globally and into the future solutions, not immediate band-aids. So we ideally fully support Mike and this program and any program similar to this.
Good morning. I think is what I would start off by saying is that we in the criminal justice system have got to rethink how we do business. And when you look at non-traditional approaches to how we do business and establish an equilibrium, and the equilibrium being how do we serve justice and make sure that offenders are paying their debt to society, but at the same time, how do we relieve the burden that's currently on the court system, on the jail system, and find that balance. So if we have first-time offenders who are nonviolent offenders who go through this process and are found to be eligible to participate, we're giving them a second chance. And it almost parallels what looks like what happens in the courts now. When we put them into the court system, they go to court and they get put on probation, and basically they're getting that same chance. Is what we've done is to put another step in place that allows us to be able to relieve some of the economic burden, some of the gridlock that started to occur, in the court system. And as was already mentioned, this is something that has been validated. It's not something that we're jumping off on and looking at without any data to support the direction that we're moving in. So if you look at a rethink of the process, a rethink of the criminal justice system, and a validation of things that have already occurred, and as was mentioned with the teen court, we've had the teen court system in place for a number of years. And when you look at young people, first-time offenders who've gone through this process, it becomes pretty clear that we've been able to adjust behavior and have productive citizens come out of this process. The same thing with the drug court. Instead of tying up the prison system or the jail system, we've got another process that again validates why we need to take the next step with the second chance program. This is something that we need to do. This is something that we need to think about. This is something that we need to implement. As I said, we need to rethink how we do business.
I am in full support of this visionary step that Mike is taking. In my opinion, it captures the bigger picture of a person's life versus holding them to just one moment. Being at our church, within the community, I see this issue of unemployment, even within the Tri-City area, from Zion to Waukegan to North Chicago. Many of my congregants, through our program that we have, which is a job placement and job etiquette program, a lot of the individuals who have a difficulty receiving employment are those within the frame of age of 18 to 22 that just made a bad choice that seems to be a mistake that continues to haunt them over and over again. So this program, this alternative prosecution program, I believe would not only be beneficial, but it'll be something that will be, I would say, a blessing to those who just make bad choices, but come to their senses and try to reinvigorate themselves and make better choices for their future. So I'm in full support of this vision that Mike is taking a step on to bring to the community.
Any questions for any individuals on this or on new topics?
I have a question. I don't know if what I'm about to ask is possible or whether it has been done, or is there a time when the court system can either suggest or highly recommend that a young person join themselves to a church of their choice to get some spiritual help. Is that something that can be done, or is that cannot be done?
That's something that we do in the jail right now. We have a mentoring program with regards to, it's called Meet Me at the Gate, where essentially all of the different faith communities have pitched in on some level or another, where essentially when an inmate is released, they adopt the inmate. He's welcomed into their faith community. They help him in terms of his needs, both finding employment as well as housing on down the line. So we're doing that right now, absolutely. Just to say one other thing. I agree with also what Mike has said, and Mike has been saying this, and we've been out there as well. Way too many people are stigmatized with criminal records, and we've worked with, our office has worked with Senator Duffy and Senator Raoul in terms of expanding the scope of what's an expungible offense, and we continue to work on that. We continue to promote that ideal, because ultimately the reality is that businesses are not interested in a conversion story. They're not interested in the fact that somebody is a different individual than they once were. They're going to look at it from an actuarial perspective, and if they have a criminal record, the process by which they evaluate, that's going to stigmatize the person. So we tag way too many people, and that's one of the strikes against our justice system as it currently exists in terms of morality.
Are you guys working with FIST on this at all? Would they be brought in? Former inmates driving together?
I'm familiar with FIST and the work that they do, and they're not part of the program as of now, but I will look to any community group and faith-based groups as well to be part of this program in terms of where public service hours will be completed or where treatment will be completed. And Ron, to get to your question, I think it's important that the court system certainly support people, and if they want to obtain some sort of faith-based treatment or faith-based structuring of their life, I think that's something we should support. I don't believe, though, that we can require people to attend any certain church or any certain religion. I mean, that's their choice, and some people have the choice to not attend any church, and that's certainly up to them. But there are plenty of faith-based programs in Lake County already that I've worked with, both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and I know they are hugely successful. And again, I just want to reiterate that it's my firm belief that this program will allow people to learn their lesson, to pay their debt to society, and become productive members of society. And it will also alleviate the overcrowded court system we have and allow the prosecutors and the court staff to spend their limited time on those more serious, more violent offenses that are really plaguing our community right now.
Sheriff Corn, what was the name of that program you said that's already in effect?
Well, Mark McCorley, Pastor Gass, prior to him, headed up our program for mentoring program, where in essence we're working with the community, predominantly churches, in adopting inmates upon their release. And it's been tremendously successful. Our recidivism rate of people that actually go into that program is infinitely less. It's the old, you can teach a criminal woodworking or computer skills, and now you have a criminal that knows how to do woodworking or computer skills. You need moral rehabilitation, and from my perspective, that only comes from our faith.
Does that program have a particular name?
Right, the reentry program.
Reentry program.
And it's currently in our jail right now.
Did you say meet me at the gate?
Right, it's another synonym we use for it.
Sheriff, will this, in your perspective, do you think this will alleviate some of the overcrowding at the jail?
Yeah, it's one step, and he's thinking in the right direction, and he has been. We have a lot of things that we need to evaluate, I think, in terms of our justice system. But the state's attorney is limited in solving all those ills, but he's on the right track, and he has been.
How much does it cost to incarcerate someone at the jail? on average?
Well, our jail essentially, because the bulk of the services we provide are flat. You know, I mean, we have a medical contract, we have a food contract. These aren't based upon the number of inmates, so it's difficult to gauge. But it's estimated conservatively that it costs $30,000 a year minimum to incarcerate an individual. You know, I would submit to you that in the northern sphere of the United States, it's $40,000.
Excuse me, what was that again? 40,000
To incarcerate an individual for a year in the northern tip of the United States.
in the northern part, but you said it's 30?
This is seen, I consider this to be the north.
You saying in Lake County it's like 30?
No, I said those are the most. That's the most conservative number I've seen in recent history as
So
far
could
as
be
what it
anywhere
costs.
between 30 to 40.
Right.
Okay.
Besides this is for Mike Nerheim. Besides the element of going to a center to kind of a rehab center, is there an element of education, of promoting an education, of continuing? Because you gave ages, roughly like first offenders are usually younger. So is there any form of promoting education or going back to school, going back to college, and eventually contributing to society, maybe opening their own business or?
Right. One of the requirements would be, in addition to the treatment and the public service and restitution, if any, would be, and this is similar to a requirement that's placed on people on probation, would be that they have to seek and maintain either employment or full-time education.